Now let's get to a really serious story. This is the story of the Bush administration's secret memos. They have finally been released, at least some of them have been released, and they indicate things that'll blow your mind, man. They apparently were willing to go so much farther than they actually went, and it boggles the imagination as to what they were thinking. But we know it because these are the guys that are anti-democratic. They don't really believe in this system of government anyway. The Dick Cheney crowd. And the guy who wrote these memos, John Yoo, who is egregiously a professor at Berkeley now, a law professor. If I was going to Berkeley Law School, I would demand my money back. This guy is an absolute fraud, one of the worst attorneys, not only in America right now, but will be judged as one of the worst attorneys in the history of the United States. Pulled opinions out of his ass. They just made up things that are not attached to American law or jurisprudence in any way, shape, or form. Even other Republican attorneys within the Bush administration would later look at John Yoo's work and go, oh, wow, that is outrageous. It is based on absolutely nothing. So, it could be based on absolutely nothing, but if it's inoffensive, maybe it doesn't do that much harm. But in this case, we already know the two things that John Yoo authored that wound up leading to, and that some of the others at the Office of Legal Counsel and the Justice Department did for Bush administration, that wound up leading to wild breaking of the law over and over again. One was torture. Remember, they wrote the memo along with Bybee that said, look, you know, if you don't have massive organ failure, it's not really torture. So if the guy doesn't die, by definition, it's not torture. And there were a number of memos issued on that count. And then number two, the warrantless wiretapping. They said, of course, the president can ignore the Fourth Amendment. Come on, Fourth Amendment, that's a joke. No, it's wartime and it's on American soil. Yes, you can eavesdrop on Americans here in the United States. Now, that's what we already knew. Now, they haven't released some of those memos, but we know because of leaks, etc., and admissions by people within the Bush administration, yes, those memos do exist and they do say those things. But now we find a new level of atrocity. Number one, they didn't just go after the Fourth Amendment, they went after the First Amendment. Here's what John Yoo wrote in a memo entitled Authority for Use of Military Force to Combat Terrorist Activity Within the United States. He said, quote, First Amendment speech and press rights may also be subordinated to the overriding need to wage war successfully. In other words, during what we are calling wartime, you can ignore the First Amendment rights of the press and of regular Americans at your will. So First Amendment, if the First Amendment doesn't apply, by the way, and the Fourth Amendment doesn't apply, on United States soils for United States citizens, because John Yoo and Dick Cheney have decided that we're in wartime, then what amendment does apply? What would be the boundaries? And as you look at the summation of these memos, you see there are no boundaries. He thinks the president can do anything. You don't believe me? Wait till you get a load of the next memo. In one of the memos, Yoo explains that the president can, if he chooses to, target and destroy an American airplane, ship, office building, if he thinks there are terrorists inside. So, hey, look, there were terrorists inside the building, or we thought there was terrorists inside the building. What could we do? We blew it to smithereens. Now, here's the thing. I get its origin. Remember, this is after 9/11. Let's be fair here. And one of the reasons that they thought they needed this authority, and somebody at the Justice Department to write this up, is, hey, can we shoot down a civilian airliner if we just saw what happened on 9/11? Flight 93, could we shoot it down? That's a real and legitimate question. But you have to put some constraints on that memo. If you're a lawyer worth your salt in any way, if you're just a lawyer that graduated from law school, you have to understand under what conditions. You can't just say to the president, oh, well, since we have an indefinite war, you can blow up any building you like inside the United States that has United States civilians if you vaguely think there are terrorists inside it. You can't write a memo like that. That's crazy. That's way beyond the law. You can say, hey, within certain circumstances, and here are the circumstances, like 9/11, when you have a civilian airliner in the air and you know it has been, hijacked, etc., etc. There's ways to craft an exception here, which is dangerous. But if you do it right, I can understand how it's necessary. But if you say to the president, look, don't worry about the Constitution. First Amendment, you can take away press rights. Fourth Amendment, you can do searches and seizures of anyone you suspect of terrorism. That is also outlined in these memos. United States citizens, if you think you suspect them in any way of being terrorists, not probable cause, not any legal standard, you just feel like they might be terrorists or connected to terrorists in any way, go ahead and do searches and seizures without getting any court orders, without getting warrants. These things are so beyond legal that it basically slaps the United States Constitution and the American people in the face and says, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, we had memos where we said we were going to violate all of these amendments. And not only did we have these memos, but we executed half of them. Now, they didn't blow up any civilian buildings or planes or ships, as far as we know, right? So now, at least they didn't do that. So it should be very clearly noted on the record that that was wrong, illegal, etc., and there should be steps taken to withdraw those memos and to clearly state that the Justice Department does not believe that that is legally binding. By the way, they did withdraw most of these memos. You know when? A couple of months before the Bush administration ended. So up until the Bush administration ended, they could have done, violation of your First Amendment rights or blown up a building according to these memos that existed and were, quote-unquote, valid within the Justice Department. One of the memos they took away 5 days before Bush left office. Now, why do they do that? You know why they do that. Because they want to be at the end, say, oh, yeah, oh, no, what memos? We didn't have any memos. What are you talking about? No, what memos? No. We took those away. Because you knew they were absolutely egregious and illegal. This is absolutely egregious, and the bottom line on it is, if we don't take some sort of action here, some sort of real legal and criminal action, future generations will say yes, an American president can come in and put in a yahoo like John Yoo, who's a hack, barely an attorney, and have him say, oh, yeah, my, legal opinion is that you can break any damn law you like in the country and then get away with it. Are we going to let the Bush administration get away with it? That is the obvious next question here.